All right, how about this? Based on the last 2 seasons, Lamar Jackson is probably going to rush for about 1,000 more yards than Patrick Mahomes. That's 100 fantasy points. Can Patrick Mahomes make up those 100 fantasy points? And who are you taking first overall? We're talking about our top 5 quarterbacks. It's top 5 week. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and then we'll come up with some quirky top 5 for Friday's show, I'd say. But we got 5 episodes this week, and welcome to Fantasy Football Today. Really, it's a top 6 because you got 4 guys after those big 2, and we'll try to sort it out. I'm Adam Azer. Happy Father's Day, everybody. Happy belated Father's Day. Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, Heath Cummings are all with me today. Happy Father's Day to you guys. Did you get any groovy ties this year?
No ties.
No ties.
Did you?
Just steaks.
I didn't get anything. I didn't get any gifts for Father's Day, so I could
Me
use
either.
the tie.
I got a book. My kids wrote in a little book, so I guess I got a gift. But yes, nothing like nothing that is typical Father's Day stuff, I guess.
Okay.
My 15-year-old gave me a Father's Day card meant for a father getting his first Father's Day. And he wrote, "I love you, Daddy," inside.
He did this on purpose, like as a
On
gift?
purpose.
Oh, that's good.
That's funny.
I like that. Heath, how are you?
Fantastic. I disagree with your premise of like the very opening of the show. I don't know that we should expect Lamar Jackson to run for 1,000 more yards than Patrick Mahomes.
I just said based on the last 2 seasons, that's what's going to happen. He was on he was on almost a 1,300 yard pace in his 7 starts in 2018, and then he rushed for on pace for almost 1,300 yards last year.
I expect he's going to run just a little bit less. And Patrick Mahomes was on like almost like a 400 yard pace last year if you count the playoffs and don't count the game that he got hurt.
If you count I don't know. That's true? I don't think that's true. You know.
He had the big run in the playoffs, remember?
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to. Yeah, I know. Keith just makes this stuff up. It's good stuff.
No, it's true.
All right. Okay. Well, look, there's going to be a gap to make up there for Patrick Mahomes. You guys want some ADP? I'll give you a little Father's Day gift, some average draft position on NFC ADP. Lamar Jackson, 16th overall. Patrick Mahomes, 17th overall. And then a really big gap. Kyler Murray, round 5. Dak Prescott, round 5. They're 55th and 57th, respectively. Russell Wilson, 66th, and Deshaun Watson, 70th. So you got Jackson, Mahomes in round 2, 16th and 17th overall. Then Kyler and Prescott, mid-round 5. Wilson and Watson in round 6. Dave, what do you think about that? Just the gap between the top 2 and the next 4.
We've seen it in our mock drafts that those are going to be the first 2 quarterbacks off the board, and there's going to be a couple of rounds before you see the third quarterback go. And then once that third quarterback go, you start to see more passers. By the end of round 6, you'll see 6 quarterbacks off the board.
It makes me want all Deshaun Watson all the time if he's the last one of that 6.
I want whoever's last of that group.
100%.
Whether it's Watson, Murray, Dak, Russ.
Who do you want, Heath?
I think I've made that pretty clear. Like I do think that Watson may be the better value. I think both Mahomes and Jackson are just flat out bad values here. If they're going in the second round, I'm just not going to get any of them. But I would still say if Dak's going, I kind of just wait until somebody takes somebody number 3 that's not Dak, and then I'll take Dak.
Okay, so we'll obviously get into all of these players and talk about how we're ranking them. The consensus rankings: Mahomes, Jackson, Prescott, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Deshaun Watson. That's your top 6. But Jamie's got Watson 3rd, right?
Yep.
It's all different. So it's going to be a fun conversation. One thing that was helpful for me was sort of going through each statistic and figuring out of those 4. Who's going to have the most passing yards? The most based on history, most passing touchdown. Who rushes the most?
I wonder who that's going to be.
Well, Murray and Watson were pretty close last year. But
Jackson?
Oh no! I just meant the next.
He said
4.
the next
4, not the first 2.
Right.
Watson, I don't know. Based on history, probably gonna have the most rushing touchdowns, 5 to 7 every year, based on his pace. Anyway, that helped me. Maybe we'll go through that later if I could think it could be helpful for the listeners. But let's.
Did you guys reference the mock draft we did Thursday on Friday show at all?
Yes.
No.
Yes, we
did.
Maybe
a little.
Well, do you want to know how the quarterbacks went there?
Yeah, sure. This is our industry industry insider draft with all the cool people from the industry.
All-star.
Jackson and Mahomes went in round 3. Jackson first, and then it went. Sorry for the delay. Went all the way down to round 6, where it went Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, and Dave took Wilson. Heath took Prescott.
Yeah.
If I could be a little controversial here, I can't believe you have Deshaun Watson third, Jamie.
I mean, it's based on ADP and obviously our consensus rankings. It's controversial. I've said it several times here that I think this is going to be his Cam Newton 2015 season where he's going to just go nuts. I think you're going to see his best rushing season ever. He was on pace for over 600 yards rushing his rookie year before he suffered the ACL tear. A lot of it is contingent on the health of Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, and those guys playing probably at least 10 games each, if not more. But I think, and I know Heath had this as his bold prediction. I think that if all these guys play at their best, that he has the chance to be better than all of them. Now, if you're looking at it from all these guys, they have huge ceilings and I think little floors. He probably has the lowest floor. Maybe Kyler does, but I just think that he's going to put it all on him, and I think it's going to end up having a great season. But I don't have a problem if anybody takes Kyler, Dak, Russell Wilson ahead of Deshaun Watson. I mean, they're all so close, and they all have the potential to be great. But for me, I just think that this is going to be Watson having that MVP caliber season.
Okay. Come back to that in a little bit. Let's get some news and notes here. I just want to promote a few things. We got Poker Night on Twitch, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to get out early this time. I'm not going to rush off to put the kids to bed. I'm going to let them stay up really late so I can win again. Tuesday at 7 p.m., twitch.com/FF Today. Join us. It's hosted by our friends at Faded Spade. Faded Spade Card Club is a new social poker platform offering free play and custom games. And our URL on Twitch is twitch.com/FF Today. And we do have 5 episodes this week, top 5 at each position, and a mailbag on Friday. You can send us your mailbag questions via Apple Podcast Review or your emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Think about what you guys want to rank on Friday. Could be anything. We'll have fun.
Podcast hosts.
No, please no. All right, news and notes. Joe Brady, Carolina's offensive coordinator, pretty high on Curtis Samuel. He says he's going to be a big part of the offense. Heath, is he going? Do you believe it? What do you think?
It's hard to believe because we got all excited about him, and the truth is that looking at his career so far, he's just not been very good when people have thrown him the football. And part of that could be bad quarterback play, and maybe Teddy Bridgewater, he should be an upgrade over what he had last year at least. He should see more accurate throws, but he was kind of the only downfield guy last year. Now they've got Robbie Anderson as well. Anderson clearly a more established deep threat and wide receiver than Samuel is. So it's really hard to believe. We know he's going to be behind DJ Moore. We know he's going to be behind Christian McCaffrey. And then you're chopping up the rest of those targets. Probably like half the targets are gone now.
I think one thing that's going to be interesting with him is he'll probably, depending on what the preseason looks like, he'll have a play or two or something in practice that, like we saw last year, where they'll, oh my gosh, look what he's able to do, and connecting with Bridgewater and sort of building off what Brady says. And then my guess is he'll have one of those games early in the season, because we all expect them to be chasing points and throwing the ball a lot, that he's going to be one of those rush to the waiver wire guys and could have a Sammy Watkins-like season where week 1 or week 2 is very good, and then you just keep starting him or hoping or waiting, and this is going to happen and blah, blah, blah. He's got a lot of talent. I think he said it best. There's a problem with him, whether it's his consistency or the quarterback play, but he just has not been able to put it all together. But I do think that there's still a chance for him to be somewhat productive, but I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that you feel comfortable starting.
Yeah, he might end up being 40 catches for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Role player for the Panthers.
All right. Deebo Samuel could be ready for week 1. You know, we kind of talked about that, but we also, most of the conversation was going to be like, he's going to miss some time. We don't know yet. He could be ready for week 1. There was a little more optimism.
I'd be shocked.
You're seriously.
Okay.
Like, why rush it with a young receiver that, for a team that obviously can't afford to give up wins, but the strength of this team is their rushing and their defense. And, if they have to, be creative, like Kyle Shanahan certainly could, There was some fun tweets yesterday, if you were following it. Deebo Samuel and Raheem Mostert both tweeting maybe Des Bryant to the 49ers. So that's something that may bubble on the surface, but I'm not drafting Deebo Samuel right now.
Okay, and then Roger Goodell, he's optimistic about starting the season as scheduled. According to Mike Florio, though, there's less optimism about playing in front of fans right now. We know what's happening. A lot of players testing positive in baseball, in college football, and NFL, and they're just going to have to figure out what to do about it. And you know what? Why speculate? It's June 22nd. We got time. Let's see what happens.
So no Drew Brees for you, right? You're still out?
In what? Why? Because the fans
No
thing?
fans?
I think it's going to make a difference. I don't know what difference. I think that playing without fans, if that happens, Heath left us and now is coming back. So you hear the Zoom sounds. It's gonna change things. I don't know what the impact will be. I'm not making any fantasy adjustments. But if they play football without fans, it's just gonna be different somehow.
Is it fans or is it noise? Because if they do pump in crowd noise,
I think it's fans. It's energy.
But do they pump in the crowd noise on the broadcast or into the stadium?
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to.
And what are they doing with, is it wherever they're playing baseball right now? Aren't they putting like cardboard people in the seats?
Yeah, I saw
Stuffed
that
animals.
in Korea. Yeah, they had,
Mhm.
had some funny stuff there. And I actually don't really know if I feel like they haven't had any issues there, but they also didn't have the same type of viral spread in South Korea, obviously. All right, well, we'll see what happens. Hi, Heath.
Hi, Adam.
Heath, would you like to hear about my terrible Twitter polls?
I would love to hear about anything terrible you did.
Felt like that answer was coming. All right, I did 2 Twitter polls. 5-point per passing touchdown league. I did that on purpose. Who do you prefer, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? This one was terrible because it was so one-sided. I was surprised. Patrick Mahomes got 80% of the vote. 5-point per passing touchdown league. 80% said Patrick Mahomes. Who would you take?
Yeah, it's like I would take Lamar Jackson in 4 points, but in 5, I'm looking here, I've got 9. Yeah, I would still take Mahomes by about 5% in terms of projections. So I think that it's 80% are correct.
So how do we feel about this Mahomes versus Jackson debate? Where are we?
Yes. Taking both.
Everyone's Mahomes.
Every one of us, I think we're the only probably consensus site. I think most people are still favoring Jackson over Mahomes.
Well, and I think that, and I don't know if we clarified this or if everyone who drafts with us just knows this. There's also most of the other sites are not 6 points per pass touchdown.
Oh, so do all of you take Jackson in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues?
Yes.
I think you have to. Just
And Heath
based
already
on the
said he
nature
does.
of his game and how many more points he's worth because of it.
Can
I
we
just
have
think-
this discuss? Like, let's talk about them and what they basically had similar fantasy point totals when Mahomes in 2018 and Jackson 2019. Jackson, his 2019 season was a little bit better than Mahomes' big season in 4-point, and it was the opposite in 6-point, whatever. But they had similar fantasy point totals. So
No, Jackson was better in both. Points per game.
Yeah, you know what? You're right because he only played 15 games.
Right.
All right, but let's talk it out. Tell me why you guys are on the Mahomes side, at least in the 5-point and 6-point leagues.
I think it's something we've said time and time again, that there's going to be some, if not severe, regression for Jackson, some big categories. The passing touchdowns, the rate that he was on, 36 touchdowns, is that replicable? Obviously the rushing, I think it was this, including the 3 guys last year, there were 25 guys in the last 20 years or whatever it is. I have to go back and reference it, but that have rushed, for 500 or more yards. And obviously they've all, or the majority of them have come down. It's almost impossible for him to rush for what he rushed for last year again. So where's the line? Is he going from 1,200 yards to 800 yards? Is he going to 1,200 to 1,000? It's that drop off could be the difference. Now, is Mahomes throwing for 50 touchdowns again? I don't think so, but he could probably be 5,000 yards again. What we're seeing in the NFL is that's not as difficult a number to achieve, as we've seen. So, if he's over 5,000 passing yards and he can get 40 plus touchdowns, I think he's just a little bit safer than what Lamar Jackson is. And then you factor in what rushing quarterbacks have done, and they tend to get hurt more often than not. So I think he's amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if he's number one again. I just feel a little bit safer, for me at least, with Mahomes.
Could I throw something out there?
That's what this is. That's what this space is for.
Just kind of came to me here. So I think we'd all agree that Mahomes is more likely to repeat close to what he did, like Jamie said, like 5,000 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, than what Lamar Jackson did in a normal year. Do you think it's going to be to Lamar Jackson's advantage that all the teams that he's going to play this year can't have their players practicing on the field during the offseason, will have a strange type of training camp? Are they going to be, are defenses in general going to be as prepared as they might be, at least early in the season, because they didn't go through the type of workouts all off season? What I'm thinking is it might be easier now for Lamar Jackson to keep doing what he's doing because defenses just weren't able to put in the time to game plan for him like they would have in a normal offseason.
I'll just say a couple things. One, I think if anybody's getting a boost from the fact that we didn't get to have a normal offseason, it would be Mahomes, because he has basically his entire offense back. There's complete continuity with that group. And yeah, they added to it as well, but he has everyone back. There should be no confusion with the Chiefs offense.
Well, there's only one, though, big loss for the Ravens, though.
Is there?
Yeah, Yanda.
Yanda's the biggest loss.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hurst is a little loss in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I was like, Hurst. Okay, Yanda.
Yeah.
But then also, like, it's not just I don't know that opposing defenses have that much to do with it. Jamie referenced the regression. He had like the third highest touchdown rate ever for a season. He's going to lose 10 to 12 touchdowns if he throws the same number of passes, and he's almost certain to not run as much or for as many yards. His yards per carry were like 33% higher last year than they were the year before. So, like, defenses could do the exact same thing, and I just don't think Lamar Jackson's going to be as good.
I think, though, Dave, to your point, though, unless they're facing the Ravens that week, they're not putting in any sort of install to stop Lamar Jackson. So, like, I talked to Tue-Wed at the Pro Bowl about this for the story that's in our magazine, and it's on our site, too, if you want to read it. And so I asked Stephon Gilmore, who was Defensive Player of the Year, what's it like to try and stop somebody who's changed the game? And, Gilmore said these type of things, you catch up to them. And Tue-Wed, remember, the Steelers, the only team to hold him to under 20 fantasy points, didn't play them in the final week of the season. That's the game he missed. And Tue-Wed said, that's our biggest goal, because that's the team they have to get by to win a division. So whatever they're doing to work on the Ravens, it's all probably in the classroom anyway. And so I would imagine that those conversations are being had on some linebacker meetings, defensive coordinator and defensive line meetings, So to your point, I think it's valid that, it may not be the same, but those conversations are probably being had on a different level, as opposed to here's our install of our defense. The Steelers know what their defense is. So it's okay, let's work on, the Browns for a week. Let's work on the Steelers, the Ravens for a week. That probably has happened. And it's probably been the same type of, work that it would have been anyway.
I would imagine that every team in the AFC North, their first goal was, how do we slow down Lamar Jackson?
Right. But in terms of like what the offseason prep would be, I don't think it would be on the field in camp. There may have been a mini camp thing that they do miss out on.
It would be all of the above.
Yeah, but most of those things are not like, it's not like they're going to say, okay, you go play scout team now and run Lamar Jackson.
You don't think that happens in the offseason mini camps?
It might, but I don't think it's like that's going to be the difference of, is he good or is he bad? It's not something like, while teams are prepping for stuff like that, that's not something that they're putting install in for now.
I guarantee you the Texans are looking hard at Lamar Jackson because they play him in week 2. Kansas City's looking hard at Lamar Jackson. They play him in week 3. I'm wondering if that does make a difference. And maybe that's just something that I should talk about with some people who played defense in the NFL and who have actually been there. And I will do that. The other question that I had was, who's easier to defend? And it's a crazy question because they're both really hard to defend. But if you had to pick which one is easier to defend, who would you say?
Mahomes is easier to defend.
Right. So I think that, again, that just kind of plays into this philosophy that I'm just thinking about. whether or not it makes a difference this year, because teams don't have the type of offseason that they normally have to try and put something together to slow down an opponent, because that's part of the basis of our argument, right? Regression for Lamar Jackson. He had this crazy year. Of course, he'll come down a little bit from those numbers, but is he going to crash to earth, or is it going to be just a little bit because of the situation that everybody's in?
And I'm not as certain about the Mahomes is easier to defend.
Unless neither of them are easy to defend.
Right.
I'm not willing to give an answer to that question.
If you have your choice of pocket passer versus guy that can escape, you'd rather face the guy that stays in the pocket.
I would think so.
I mean, I talked to guys about this. When I did the story on Mahomes 2 years ago, they all said the way to stop him: Calais Campbell, Chris Harris, Eric Weddle. What's the key? Keep him inside. You don't want him moving. The last thing you want to do is see him outside the pocket, him specifically. But I think anytime you're going to get a quarterback that moves, you'd much rather face a guy who's going to sit back there. Where he is.
Well, yeah, Mahomes pretty mobile. They're nightmares. They're nightmares.
Right.
I think we all would agree that Mahomes. You have to say maybe Jackson changes our mind with another big year, but Mahomes is a better player, right? I mean, he's probably the best player in football.
I think what was it? ESPN just did if you were drafting players now. Like, forget about the NFL draft. Like, everybody's redrafting the league.
Mahomes is definitely one.
Mahomes was one, but I think Russell Wilson was two. I don't think Jackson went until 3 or 4.
But in that same thing, wasn't Drew Lock like 18 or something?
I think a lot of the quarterbacks went early, so it's not necessarily like I think Aaron Donald was the first non-quarterback.
But should we consider that if you're sitting there, you're going, Jackson Mahomes. Well, Mahomes he's amazing. He has a chance to be a legend, and maybe Jackson does too, but I don't know if we're there yet, because Cam Newton has not been anywhere near as good as he was when he had his 35 touchdown or his 45 total touchdown season, his MVP season in 2015. Like, Mahomes just feels safer to me because I know Andy Reid is the best. Mahomes is unbelievable. Like, there are not enough words to describe how good he is, and maybe Jackson's just a little bit, a little bit away from being in that same sentence. So he just needs to prove a little bit more.
We don't have the sample size.
Yeah, that's what I'm
seen
trying
guys do produce what Mahomes has done time and again. Drew Brees has done it, Marino to a certain extent, Peyton Manning to a certain extent. These guys that are elite level throwers, elite level passers. Now Jackson can get there, but like the 2006 Michael Vick season, we didn't get a chance to see what he would have done the next year because of his off the field transgressions. I think for Jackson, if he goes 3,000 and 1,000 again, and that's something that he can maybe do for another couple of years, if not get better, then it's a different conversation, because then you're seeing a different level of a player, not just a quarterback. I mean, he's amazing. So I think you said it best, Adam. Both these guys are nightmares. They're fun for fantasy. If you're so inclined that you have to take a quarterback early in round 2, and you're that fantasy manager, it's the same thing we said about the other 4. You just take the second guy, and I think you should be happy about it.
All right, so that'll cover those 2. The next 4. Here was the second terrible Twitter poll. I figured that I host a fantasy show. I figured everybody would interpret this as a fantasy question. I don't think they did. So this is probably a useless Twitter poll. But assuming Mahomes and Jackson are the top 2, who's your number 3 QB? I posted this right after I posted the 5-point per passing touchdown league question, Mahomes versus Jackson. So I thought, this is obviously a fantasy question. The comments I got seemed to show some confusion. But Russell Wilson, 35% of the vote. Deshaun Watson, 24.7%. Dak Prescott, 23.6%. Kyler Murray, 16.7%. I don't think that this is a fantasy rankings question. I think people are saying that Wilson is the best quarterback of this group.
Yep.
So forget that. Let's talk 3, 4, 5, 6. Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson. I want to hear you guys debate right after this quick break. Ooh, what a tease. On Fantasy Football Today. We'll be right back. Dave Richard, kick it off. 3, 4, 5, 6 in the QB rankings. How do you do it?
Dak is number 3 for me. Russell Wilson is number 4. Kyler Murray is number 5. Deshaun Watson is number 6. And I don't mean to slight Deshaun by putting him at 6, but, new receivers, big problems.
Jamie, quite different.
Yeah, it's Watson, Dak, Wilson, Murray.
Yes. And Heath?
Yeah, for me, it's Dak, Wilson, Watson, Murray. And I've got Dak like almost a tier ahead of those guys. Kyler and Deshaun pretty much the same, other than I think obviously Watson's floor to me looks higher than Murray's. We've seen him be a good fantasy quarterback.
So
I want to feel better about Deshaun. I really do.
Yeah, let me just say that one key takeaway is that nobody has Dak Prescott lower than 4th. He's 3rd for Dave and Heath. He's 4th for Jamie. And Heath said he's a tier ahead of the others. Now, Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I said what I needed to say. I wish I could feel better about Deshaun Watson. I almost want to be soothed on this podcast. Like right now, coddle me and hold me in your arms and tell me that Deshaun Watson is going to be the 3rd best quarterback. Let me know how it's going to play out, because with Cooks and Fuller as his top 2 guys, I don't quite see it.
I don't think he's finished top 3 yet. For the record, in 2017, his rookie season, he was the best quarterback on a per game basis. 2018 and 2019, I have him as QB5 both years. So now you're taking away DeAndre Hopkins. You have a team that doesn't pass the ball all that much. And all of a sudden he's going to have his best finish? Really?
I think so.
Well, he was probably top 3 or 4 on a per game basis last year, right? Because he only played 15 games.
I think he was 4th. I will confirm right now.
And I mostly agree with everything Jamie's saying about Watson, except for I can't get him he's right in that same range with Wilson. I've got him ahead of Murray. I can't get him to Dak's level, but I do think that we should expect he's going to set career highs in pass attempts, pass yards, and maybe even pass touchdowns.
How come?
Because I think the Texans might be the worst Texans defense they've had since he became a part of the team. Yeah. And I think, yes, not having DeAndre Hopkins is terrible, but he has as deep a set of weapons in the passing game as just about any quarterback. Both of his running backs are excellent in that area. Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, Randall Cobb. You may not like those guys particularly in fantasy, but there's an enormous amount of talent and speed there.
His offensive line should be better too. I mean, they've been building it for the last 2 years, rebuilding it for the last 2 years. So I just, again, I could totally get behind anybody taking Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray ahead of him. I completely understand it. I just think if they all get to what their ceilings could be, and we saw Dak's ceiling last year, I don't know if Dak's going to be better than what he was last year, but he can certainly replicate that. And Russell Wilson, to me, Russell Wilson is kind of the swing in all this, because if Seattle does let him get his way and they play more up-tempo and throw the ball more, he's going to be probably challenging the top 2 guys. He has that type of potential if his receivers stay healthy. But I just think that Watson will probably run more than those other 4 guys because he's going to have to. I think he's going to score more rushing touchdowns. You've already laid that out, Adam.
You think he's going to have more rushing yards than Kyler Murray?
I do.
Okay.
I do, because I think Kyler will run less. Because
it'll be within 100 yards.
I hope so. I hope so for Kyler's sake. If Deshaun does what I think he's going to do, because like I said, he was on pace for over 600 yards rushing in his rookie season before the ACL tear. I just think also schematically how I see this offense operating with all these guys running downfield, there's going to be a lot of rushing lanes open, when the pocket breaks down for him. Because if this offense is operating like that, then he's going to have a lot of lanes to run through. So I think he's going to have – that's kind of the basis for this for me, as I think his rushing is going to get to a – not to a Lamar Jackson level, but I think he could be in the 700-yard rushing range. I wouldn't be surprised at that.
It wouldn't be a surprise if he led the Texans in rushing with 700 yards too, because David Johnson
that's part of it.
Concerns, and he hasn't looked. He looked solid in the first half of last year with Arizona, and then when he came back from injury and Kenyon Drake was already there, and maybe you could say he couldn't get into a rhythm or something like that, but he didn't look good. And if he's not, and I said all along, I'm going to wait till training camp to really get an idea of what David Johnson is. If he's not running well, and they're clearly not going to give Duke Johnson the lead role because they didn't do it last year when Carlos Hyde was the guy. That's crazy that they went with Hyde then. I think I would take odds on Deshaun Watson being the leading rusher for the Texans this year. I think that would be an interesting bet to make. And I think it's very possible he could finish as the leading rusher there. And I think that's what would have to happen for Deshaun Watson to finish as a top 3 fantasy quarterback. You would need David Johnson to stink. You would need Duke Johnson to not have a big role in the run game, and Deshaun Watson would just take off and have all those opportunities that Jamie's talking about.
I just wish he had a different coach. They were 32nd in defense 2017. They were the worst defensive team in the league. They were 23rd in pass attempts. That's horrible.
Well,
Would it make you feel better if they had a new offensive coordinator?
he also didn't play the whole season.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you would. It's just in Bill O'Brien's nature.
I mean, are you gonna let the backups that year throw the ball that much?
You have to if you have the worst defense in football, don't you? It's just Bill O'Brien's nature is not to be a pass happy team.
Yeah, but his points per game that year were the best in fantasy.
Yeah, he was unbelievable as a rookie. He hasn't been quite as good. He hasn't had a 30 touchdown pass season since
He would have
it's
that
only
year.
been 2 years. Yeah, he would have that. He would have had like a 43 touchdown pass season that year or something like
That's
that.
the guy I'm expecting. Honestly, I mean, it's lofty expectations. I totally get that, but I'm at this
Wow.
position. I mean, you've heard me say this for years. I'm going to draft for who I think has the highest ceiling, and after the top two guys, I think he has the highest ceiling.
How he has a higher ceiling than because I think Kyler Murray is going third in ADP because people think he has that ceiling, and I sort of
I agree.
agree.
He does, but I think Watson. If they both play their best, I think Watson will be better. I also think, like I said before, Watson and Murray have the lowest floors of these guys.
Yeah.
Well, and like you were saying, we think Kyler Murray has that type of upside. That's why he's being drafted number 3. And I wouldn't even disagree with it, but we can only think it. We've seen that type of upside from Deshaun Watson for a half a season.
But we've barely mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. Is that not a big deal? It's a
It-
huge deal.
I
Huge
don't
deal.
know how big a deal it is. His yards per attempt, DeAndre Hopkins, are pretty close to his career yards per attempt
He
Okay.
made up 30% of Deshaun Watson's career stats.
because it was 30% of his pass attempts. Like it should be if he was better, he's throwing the ball to him 33% of the time.
Sure.
He should take up at least 30% of his stats.
But-
And
but that's
part
what
of
they have
part
to
of this
replace.
sorry, yeah, part of this downside potential for Watson is you're counting on his two top receivers. One is coming off, I think it's 5 concussions.
Yeah.
3
Well,
noted
not
ones
5.
last year,
Yeah, but 2 and
3
1.
last year, or
I
two
think
two
it-
reported.
And then there was the one. In
And
the
then you have Will Fuller who can't stay healthy. That's a huge risk. It's a huge risk. I totally get it. He should be
you're a
he should
risky
be going
guy.
6th. Huh?
Yeah, you're a risky guy to put him third.
Well, again, if I miss on what his upside could be, I may fall into Daniel Jones, or I may fall into Roethlisberger, or maybe Stafford. Depending on how this all goes. I'm not saying that guy in particular. I'm saying that type of player.
Yeah,
You
but
know, the guy
I
who
guess
ends up
I
second
guess the
quarterback,
question
if
is
you
like,
take Deshaun Watson.
No, but I mean, Stafford was undrafted for the most part last year. Jameis was not drafted as a top 12 quarterback. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes last 2 years weren't drafted as top 12 quarterback. So,
but they
it
were
may not
drafted.
be-
But they were drafted.
Huh?
They were drafted. You're not gonna draft
No,
Deshaun Watson,
no, but-
take
but
nobody
my
else,
point-
and then pick up Daniel
You can
Jones.
pick up Brian Tannehill, who was
I
the
could
number
pick
2
up Gardner Minshew. I could pick up Ryan Tannehill, who was the 7th best quarterback or the 2nd best quarterback after week 7. This is the position that you swing for the fences on.
Okay. So by the way, speaking of Matthew Stafford, looked up points per game. Deshaun Watson was actually 2nd in points per game in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, -1 for interceptions in this scoring that I'm looking at. He was 5th in points per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Stafford was 2nd, Brees 3rd, Prescott then Watson, then Wilson. Very, very bunched together, though. All of them way behind Lamar Jackson.
And Watson was 4th last year, though, right, in total points?
I have him as 5th,
Yes.
but probably very
got
close,
him at
4th or 5th. Let me see.
have him
I had. Oh, you know what? Tied with Jameis Winston for 4th. So I'll make that change in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Okay, but I don't want to
I
make
see
this all about.
371.5 to 371. Watson had.
Oh, okay, all right. So we'll give it to Watson. I don't want to make this all about Deshaun Watson, but you're talking about his upside. Does every quarterback in that group of 4 have elite upside? I mean, I feel like the
We
answer
don't
is
know.
yes. Don't they all have? Okay,
Well,
you're right about
I guess
Murray,
I-
Heath, but like this is a high upside group. I don't know why Watson would have much more upside than the others. I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, Heath referenced it. We saw it in 2017. He could be the best quarterback in fantasy if that guy shows up again.
Who finished number
Um,
1 that year, by the way?
Huh?
Who finished number 1 that year?
He did.
Who did?
Watson
Not per game, for the season.
in
Wilson.
2017.
Russell Wilson. Yeah. It was one of the weakest
It was
QB1
pre-Schottenheimer
seasons.
too, right?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
17.
Well, Heath, I'll ask you this because you love Prescott. Is he going to be better than he was last year?
I don't think he's probably going to be better than he was last year, but he had the elite upside that we're looking for in all these other guys last year. If he matches what he did last year, that's the elite upside that you're looking for. I do think that while he's probably going to regress a little bit, anytime somebody puts up those types of numbers, that should be the expectation. What Kellen Moore did with the offense and the fact that they added CeeDee Lamb to this mix, I'm just not so sure he's not just going to be that good again. And there is a little bit of room in terms of touchdowns. When we talk about Lamar Jackson throwing 36 touchdown passes on 400 and some attempts, he had 30 touchdown passes on almost 600 attempts. That's pretty close to average. So it is possible that Dak's passing touchdowns could come up a little bit. And if there was one other place, I think he was at 6 rushing touchdowns per year every year before last year.
Yep.
So
And
the rushing touchdowns could come up a little bit as well. The passing yards are probably going to come backwards a little.
Yep. Any of these guys make you nervous? I avoid, don't want him at all.
Oh, no. I mean, Watson makes me the most nervous, but I would still absolutely take him if he's the last man standing of the group.
I don't think I will get any Kyler Murray this year, and it's not like I do think he's an excellent breakout candidate, and I think that there's some serious upside there. But he never seems to be the last one, at least in the drafts that I'm in, that's taken amongst this group. And so I'm not going to take him over any of the other guys.
Okay. How about let's talk about Russell Wilson a little bit and how you guys feel about him. Dave?
He's awesome. I think that's been proven. I don't know if I need to give statistical evidence as to how awesome he is, but 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns is something that you can feel pretty comfortable expecting from him, along with some decent rushing numbers. And all the talk, and we've already talked about on this podcast, is Russell Wilson going to be able to have more control of the offense? Well, if Seattle is smart, there will be games where he does have control of the offense. And you want to talk about defenses that are going to struggle this year. I think Seattle's defense is in rough shape. I think they're in worse shape than the Texans' defense, which means Russ is going to have to come to the rescue again. And those fourth quarter points are massive for him in fantasy. He might have 18 fantasy points through 3.5 quarters. And then by the end of the game, he's at 30. And he's a master back there, and totally see him with QB1 potential if Mahomes has a year like last year and if Lamar Jackson does get figured out.
Okay, so
he feels the safest of this group.
Of the 4?
Yeah. Because he's done it time and time again.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, last year he was half a point behind Dak, as great as Dak was in points per game.
And he was blowing Dak away before Lockett's injury. He was the number 1 quarterback in fantasy.
He was an MVP candidate in the NFL.
And let's just look at where he's finished the last 5 seasons, Russell Wilson. 5 years, it's basically when he started putting up more prolific passing numbers, 4,100 yards, 31 to 35 touchdown passes in 4 of those 5 seasons. Well, I don't have it in front of me now, but I think it's top 4 3 times. Sorry, top 4 3 times. And 2 bad seasons. One of them was with the ankle. And then one of them was 2018 where he threw how many passes did he throw? 450 passes, something like that.
Yeah.
They were the lowest passing team in the NFL.
That's the thing you fear with him.
Yeah. How much do we fear that?
I think you fear that, and there's a little bit of risk that he's going to be 32 years old this year. Is that right? And last year was his second lowest rushing total. So I think there's a little bit of risk that some more of that rushing disappears and they don't throw. But I agree with Dave mostly that their defense probably isn't going to be good enough to be as run heavy as they would like.
I don't think Pete Carroll cares about that, though. I think he trusts himself to turn this defense around at some point, whether it's early in the season or if they're struggling early, to do it by the middle of the season. So that's the biggest thing is what their philosophy is going to be. Because if they open things up, he's going to be amazing. He's got his best, probably top 2 receivers that he's ever had. If Metcalf builds off what he did last year, and Olsen, if they get Disley back, that'll stabilize that position. And who knows what they do with throwing to their backs out of the backfield if something changes, maybe with Travis Homer being a little bit more involved, or they throw the ball to Carson eventually. But man, he could be so unbelievable if he gets to the Dak 596 pass attempts, or he has the I'm going to run a little bit more, take on a little bit of a younger mentality that he had. I just think he's the safest of this group. He's shown it before. He can do it on low volume. You'll have some potential risk if the touchdowns aren't there, because of whatever they decide to do in the red zone. But if he's anywhere close, if he's anywhere north of 550 pass attempts, I'll feel pretty happy about Russell Wilson.
Oh, that would be great. That would be really good. Okay, so let's do some fill in the blank here and see if we can sum up our feelings on this group. Top 5 quarterback I'm avoiding based on ADP. I think you probably already answered that. Remember, it's Jackson and Mahomes, 16th and 17th. Murray in round 5. Prescott 2 picks later. Wilson and Watson in round 6. Top 5 quarterback I'm avoiding based on ADP is blank.
Kyler.
Jackson.
Can I give you one note on Kyler with the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Just that is a little interesting. They were, for the season, they were 18th in rush attempts at 24.8 rush attempts per game. In the final 3 games of the season, when Drake was rolling, they were running the ball 30.7 times.
Well, Drake had like 22 or more carries, and
Drake was awesome. Those games, right? And if they can run the ball like that, even with Hopkins, I wonder if they'll still be as pass happy.
If they're like any team, if they can run the ball against a given opponent, they will.
Yeah.
But six carries a game is a lot. It's a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next fill in the blank. The top 5 quarterback with the best ADP is, I'll just say, you know what? Top 6 quarterback. I'm just going to say top 6. Top 6 quarterback with the best ADP.
Looking to see who's last. It's Deshaun Watson at 70th. I'll say Deshaun Watson.
Same.
I'll say Dak.
But Dave, he's only 4 picks behind Russell Wilson. Do you like Watson?
If I'm getting him last of the group, I feel like I'm coming out ahead on draft day.
But if you're in the round where you're taking a quarterback, you're taking Wilson over Watson if they're 4 picks apart.
Right.
Yeah. So if I'm making that decision, yes. But if Wilson goes ahead of him, what if I'm in those 4 picks after? What if Wilson goes earlier than that?
Sure, it depends on where you're drafting.
The top 6 quarterback with the least upside is blank.
That I might say Kyler for, because I think every quarterback on this that we've talked about has immense upside. But I'm worried about Kyler finishing as like breaking into that top 2. I think the highest he could get is 3rd.
I'm going to say Wilson. I don't like this. There's
no
answer here I'd feel good about, but I'm going to say Wilson.
All right. Jamie, least upside.
I think he said it best. There's no answer that you feel good about with this, but I think I'm going to agree with Dave that it's Kyler, just because I think he could take a step forward and improve from 3,700 passing yards and 20 touchdowns and be 4,025 and be better and be in the top 5 range, but still fall short of expectations.
Overall, I think having one of these top 6 quarterbacks on my team is blank.
Awesome.
Rad.
Okay. If I could grab lunch with one of these quarterbacks, it would be blank, and we would eat blank.
It would be Mahomes, and we would get the big sloppy cheeseburger from Charm City.
You were so close, Dave. It would be Mahomes, and it would be Joe's Kansas City barbecue.
Russell Wilson? No. Deshaun Watson.
Of course. What would you eat with him? Whatever Deshaun wants. I'd cook dinner for him.
Whatever Deshaun wants. Houston barbecue, wherever you take him.
Okay.
Gillen's.
It would obviously be, I don't know. I think Lamar Jackson, we talk about South Florida a little bit. We have that in common. And we get Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza because somebody has to eat Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza.
I got the chance at the Super Bowl to interview Dak Prescott. He was doing his interviews for Oikos, the yogurt, in a separate room. He wasn't doing it on Radio Row. And so while we were setting up and then while we were tearing down all of our camera equipment, I got a chance to talk to him for quite a bit. And he's awesome. So had I not had that experience, I probably would change my answer. But after talking to him, he told me some funny stuff about, I was asking about Dan Mullen because he played for Mullen at Mississippi State. And obviously I like the Gators. So we were talking about that. And he had some fun anecdotes that I will not share because he asked me not to. But it was fun.
Just give us like one of the ones that you're not allowed to share.
He said,
No,
I listened to a fantasy show and the host. I won't finish it.
Okay, thank you. We know where it's going. Good discussion here. We'll talk about running backs on the Tuesday
Who's
show.
your top 5, Adam?
Mahomes, Jackson.
Six.
Mahomes, Jackson. Watson's 6 for sure. I'd go Wilson, Kyler, Prescott.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't even know if I'd have Deshaun Watson 6.
Who would be
in a
sixth,
4-point per passing touchdown league? I 100% would. I would think about Matt Ryan. I do like Josh Allen. I can't really justify Allen over. I guess it's Watson, but I'm not drafting him. Put it that way. I have no interest.
Heath, I'm curious what you have it projected for. I had a tough decision in a draft that I am playing out for another magazine. Russell Wilson versus Josh Allen in 4 points per passing touchdown.
I have Josh Allen 5 points better in that format.
Yeah, it was tough. I took Russell Wilson just from the safety factor.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But I struggled with it. And Allen went right. I think maybe 3 or 4 picks after I took Russell Wilson.
Allen is agonizing for me. Like, there's so much to like and so much not to like. He's agonizing for me.
But he's like Jameis. His fantasy production versus his real life, how he plays, I think sort of differ a little bit. Like, he could be just an amazing fantasy quarterback if things click for him.
Yeah, but he also could be a really good regular quarterback. He's going into his third year where the book isn't written on him.
I don't care about his completion percentage for his fantasy production.
What is more likely in the next 3 years? Josh Allen is the number 1 quarterback in fantasy in any format, or Josh Allen is no longer a starting quarterback?
The first one.
Well, Heath, weren't at one point, weren't you taking Allen over Murray?
I did have Allen over me, and I would in a 4-point per pass touchdown league. I think I have them like dead even. So, but I'm also a little bit more skeptical of Murray, I think, too. I just think that the range of outcomes for Josh Allen, we haven't really learned very much yet. He's not good enough as a passer right now to, I think, be a starter throughout his second contract. So he's going to have to make a leap either this year or next year. Or
I would disagree. If they continue to win, I think he's going to get his second contract in a big, big way.
So there's no way I just don't see how he scores as many rushing touchdowns. I think Dave has outlined that beautifully about how inefficient Frank Gore was, and Josh Allen
still
took
get
advantage
5 or 6.
Yeah, he could, but
even with that inefficiency gone.
All right, well, that's a topic for another show. Let me read some emails here. fantasyfootball@cbsi.com.
Real quick before you do that, what's Allen's ADP?
All right, let me read the email and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Dear Philip, Frank, Tom, and Bruce.
Those are quarterbacks with their head coaches, all of whom are quarterbacks. Philip Rivers and Frank Reich, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians.
I know that the play caller massively impacts fantasy production based on tendencies, but you always talk about the same principle with quarterbacks and their preferences. Which one of the two should we trust the most in situations like the Colts and the Bucs this year? Should we trust the tendencies of those play callers or the preferences of the experienced quarterbacks coming in?
I've thought about that a lot lately because I'm going to get started on a story on the Bucs and their offense and what it might look like. And I think that when it comes to game planning, the coaches are going to have one set of details, and then the quarterback on the field is going to ultimately make the decisions because he's the one throwing the ball. And I would imagine that it does. I think the quarterback probably has, I think I would trust that tendency a little bit more than the play caller.
Both Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians have said they're going to allow Tom Brady to have his imprint on this offense. Mm-hmm. I would be shocked if they ever said that about Jameis Winston or said that to Jameis Winston. And Reich and Rivers have a history together, so I would imagine that, he's going to allow Rivers to have some input as well. But, the quarterback, I think in this case, when you're talking about guys at that level and what they've accomplished, they're going to, sort of change, I think, some of those stubborn ways of certainly Bruce Arians and maybe even Frank Reich.
But to that being said, I'm pretty sure Brady is going to feel a lot more comfortable throwing long. Like, I don't know how much of
he's not walking in and saying, I'm throwing 5-yard passes.
Right, exactly.
60% of my throws.
And Arians doesn't want it that way. And I don't know how much of New England's offense was, Tom, you better do it our way. You better do as Josh McDaniels says. Otherwise, you're going to get, like, I'm sure at some point in the mid-2000s, Josh McDowell's just like, all right, Tom, do whatever you want. We just want to win, man. You want to throw
Right.
to Wes Welker 20 times a game, go for it. And I'm sure
I just
Aaron
think that like Tom Brady doesn't want. He's not likely to be as willing to hold on to the ball as Jameis was.
Josh
which would
Allen.
lead to more
That's a
shorter
great way
passes.
to put it.
Josh Allen is eighth QB off the board, by the way.
See, if you tell me it's Josh Allen as the 8th quarterback or Kyler Murray as the 3rd, I'm taking Josh Allen 10 out of 10.
Yep.
And it's 30 picks later.
Yeah, no brainer.
Yeah, I would say that too.
Okay.
And I don't even love Josh Allen.
Let's see. We got John in a city between Kansas City and Minneapolis. Heath, I need you for this one.
Yeah, Omaha.
Lovely place. Hello, Brad, Liz, Andy, and Matt. I think that's the wrong show, but that's okay. Our Dynasty League is entering our 2nd year, and we'll be having our first rookie draft soon. When we made the changes to Dynasty, our commissioner instituted a 3-year holding period for every player. Trades and ads restart the 3-year holding period. I think this is a bad idea and will lead to some odd and relatively pointless trades in our 3rd year where we're forced to swap similar players, such as Saquon for McCaffrey, in order to restart the 3-year clock. This is the first Dynasty League for all 12 of us, so there's no experience, which led to this decision. Could you please tell our stupid idiot moron of a commissioner that we either need to lift the 3-year holding period or simply end the Dynasty after 3 years?
Yeah, it's not a Dynasty League if there's a holding period. Dynasty, you keep players forever.
Keeper league.
Yeah,
Yep.
You're going to keep league.
And I think that type of league, like, it creates some interesting, like he said, pointless trades. It creates some really interesting strategy when you get to that year 3. I think, Jamie, your basketball league has a 2-year period, right? For the 2 keepers?
No, it's almost like a 4-year.
4-year period, but
Yeah, because we do the year you draft them, and then you get 3 years on top of that.
but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just whatever the league wants.
Next email, Scott from Chicago. I'm wondering why Jared Cook is ranked so highly across the industry. He's currently tight end 9 in Fantasy Pros ADP, same tier as Waller, Ingram, Henry, and Higbee. Then he goes on to explain why he doesn't like Jared Cook. I know you guys don't see it that way. What'd you say, Heath?
You should take this one. You're the Jared Cook guy.
Not that high, though. I like him if I wait on tight end. And, I'm like the last guy to take a tight end. I think Jared Cook's, what did I say? Like, if you get 600 yards and 6 touchdowns, you're pretty much guaranteed to be a top 12 tight end. Something like that. And I think he will. I think he'll score the touchdowns.
He's an okay player to wait for. You just don't want to be aggressive to target him. And that, where he's being drafted, feels like aggressive to target him.
It's ridiculous. Plays Tampa Bay in week 1, at the Raiders week 2. Really good streaming tight end to begin the year. Like that schedule for him. But don't invest in him as a top 10 tight end.
I'm trying to find. Okay, yeah. In the last 5 seasons, there have been 38 tight ends who have caught 6 or more touchdowns. 31 of the 38 finished top 12 in PPR. The 7 who did not, none of them had even 500 yards. So I think if you get 606, you're going to finish top 12. Might not be the most impactful season, but you're going to finish top 12. I think he will get there. There was an article about him on ESPN.com, by the way. They were raving about him and how much they expect from Jared Cook this year. Interesting read. Right, next up we have Ben from a town in Somerset, England.
To be fair with Jared Cook, I was just looking at this. His numbers were, and he missed 2 games. His numbers were bad with Bridgewater. So he was good with
Horrible.
Brees.
And that was actually, thank you for reminding me, that was actually a big crux of the argument. He had an injury in preseason or training camp, kind of set him back. Then Brees got hurt. Then he got hurt basically as soon as Brees came back. And then in the second half of the season, he was the number 1 or number 2 tight end in fantasy. Lucky
Right,
numbers.
but he did
I
it
get
on.
that.
He had 1 game in his final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with more than 4 catches.
Yeah, lucky to be that high, but they did eventually develop that rapport, and I think they're hoping that it continues in year 2. All right, so this email from Ben says, I can keep up to 2 players at the round they were selected at last year. Calvin Ridley in the 5th, James Conner in the 7th, Lamar Jackson in the 8th, DK Metcalf in the 8th. Lamar is a no-brainer, but who else? Ridley in the 5th, Conner in the 7th, or Metcalf in the 8th?
Metcalf.
I think if it's a 1-year keeper situation, I'd go Conner over Metcalf. But if you can keep him long-term, I'd go Metcalf.
Yeah, I think I'd go Connor.
Connor would go the soonest in a redraft from the group.
Well, Ridley.
No, Ridley would.
Connor might go before Ridley.
Actually, you're right. In the draft, the ADP we're seeing, so running back heavy right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up
yeah.
James Conner up quite a bit.
That's a good show, guys.
Like he could end up being a top 30 pick by August.
Oh, if he's healthy, sure.
Now, right, and he's going to be healthy in training camp, assuming he's healthy in training camp.
Well,
people are going to take him. People like him.
Thanks for talking quarterbacks with me. Dave, still talking, or can I?
I'm still talking. Okay. I'm already on to the next podcast.
All right, running backs. Top 5 running backs will be the next thing you hear from us. Send us your emails, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com, your Apple Podcast questions. Leave us a nice review. We really, really appreciate your listening. Tell your friends. And we'll see you Tuesday night on Twitch for poker. For Dave, for Jamie, and Heath, I'm Adam. Thanks for listening. Na.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.